It's time for the No Nonsense Roundtable. Insights to capture your imagination from people you know and people you'd like to know about. Each week, a different guest from a different walk of life. Now, here is the host of the No Nonsense Roundtable, Dom Genova.
Well, good morning, everybody. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host, every Saturday from 10 to 11 right here on News Radio Wham 1180. And always, you can get our previous shows on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com. And here for the third time is somebody I've known for a number of years, Mr. Dan Varenti. And Dan recently retired, but he was the police chief of the Brockport Police Department when I met him years ago. And he was also the president of the Monroe County Police Chiefs Association. And with everything going on these days with public safety and our concerns, I know that Dan has some opinions to give us, and he's happy to articulate them, I would think. Right, Dan?
I have never been lost for words. I'm not going to start now, Dom.
Well, that's why I keep inviting you back. You're like a fan favorite. So let's do sometimes I like to do word association. I'm going to say one word, Brockport.
Well, you got to start right out with that. But I guess based on the word association, my reply to that would be heartbroken. I'm just heartbroken over what happened with Brockport. I'm heartbroken that the college has developed the stigma that it has. And unfortunately, it's probably very well deserved.
Well, for those that may be unfamiliar, explain what the situation was just a short while ago in Brockport.
Well, I taught at Brockport for 22 years prior to even becoming the Brockport Police Chief. And frankly, I think that's one of the reasons why the village of Brockport hired me, because they enjoyed knowing that I had already established myself at the college. And they wanted a police chief that could interact with the majority of the students there. And I was already doing that when I was interviewed for the police chief's job back in the early 90s. But nonetheless, I was working there. I was very happy. But about 2 years ago, I began realizing that the philosophy of the college under the president, Heidi McPherson, I believed was changing, and that it was becoming very judgmatic of police officers, and that they were making assumptions and passing those assumptions on to the students without having the facts. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it brings up a Daniel Prude investigation or incident that happened when the man was found to be high on drugs and naked in the city of Rochester, and Rochester police officers responded. And unfortunately, he died as a result of excited delirium, which is a result of taking drugs, and a number of other things that occurred, none of which were the cause by the Rochester Police Department. Well, at that time, when that incident occurred, Heidi McPherson wrote an email to the students where she denounced the activities of the police officers, where she drew a conclusion that it was all based upon race, which couldn't have been any further from the truth. And frankly, it upset me to read that and see that she was attempting to influence the students by an email because of her position without having the facts. So I wrote her back a very respectful, short email, just asking her to let the state grand jury that was being convened by the state attorney general at the time, let them do their work. And then if they find that there was wrongdoing, if they find it was racially motivated, then you can speak to that. But to draw those conclusions prior to it, I thought was doing a disservice to the students. I wrote the email to her and never received a reply. Ironically, and again, I had taught at the college for 22 years. The following semester that I was due to teach, my course was pulled from the curriculum, even though it was 90% full. And I guess it was retribution for me exercising my First Amendment right, but finding some fault with what the president did. So there was nothing I could do about it. I was then scheduled to teach this coming fall, 2022, and when I found out that they had invited Anthony Bottom, a convicted murderer of two police officers, which frankly doesn't make a difference to me. A murderer is a murderer. I don't think a police officer's life is any more valuable, frankly, than a citizen's life. But I do appreciate the fact that they do a very important job and that they do put their lives on the line. So maybe that's why the laws are a little more strict when you take a police officer's life. Nonetheless, Anthony Bottom killed 2 police officers. He set them up and he executed them. And then the college, by an individual by the name of Raphael Outlaw, was the individual at the college who invited Bottom to speak, and the college endorsed it. And in fact, he was going to be paid with taxpayer money through a grant to speak to the students. And I felt that was just wrong. So as a result of that, I resigned. And I didn't want to be affiliated. I won't be affiliated with a college that promotes this type of activity. And I resigned. And it broke my heart because it's not about the money. I probably was making 50 cents on a dollar for the amount of time it takes to prepare for class. But it was all about the interaction with the students and helping students not only in the classroom, but helping them, more importantly, outside the classroom, meeting them for coffee afterwards, talking about what their life ambitions might be, where they were on civil service tests. Did they take the test yet? Why haven't they taken the test? And I met with a number of students over the course of my years, and I just developed such a relationship with them that I still to this day receive emails from them. And I did, in fact, receive emails from NYPD officers who had been students of mine that said that they were so proud for what I had done, and yet I felt I had no choice in the matter. But it still made me sad that this is the college that I not only graduated from with my master's degree, but taught at for 22 years, and they felt it appropriate to bring in a murderer to speak to their students under the First Amendment right auspices. And I resigned, and that I'll stand behind my resignation.
Do you think it was more serious because it's a public school with tax dollars? Was that part of it?
I would resign from any school, whether it was a private school or a public school. Whether it's just not a school I want to be affiliated with. We live in a state, or let's just speak more locally, in a county that, in my opinion, has true heroes that have been entrepreneurs, and I'm speaking to one right here, yourself.
You're too kind.
Well, I'm very honest is what I am. And you're an entrepreneur that has been very successful in life. You took a chance. Nothing was given to you, and you did very well. Another one that I'll put in the same category is Tom Golisano. I mean, Tom Golisano starts paychecks with credit cards, and I know Tom Golisano personally. Danny Wegman, following up from his father Robert's footsteps and running Wegmans, and now going throughout the eastern seaboard of our country, opening stores. Paychecks being a multi-billion-dollar company. And those are people that I think, if you want to be a school that wants to help your students, then you bring in people like yourself. You bring in people like Tom Golisano, Danny Wegman. Talk about the chances you took. Talk about how you became successful. Well, what the hell is a murderer going to possibly tell these students that can help these students be successful in their life? Nothing in my eyes. And all they did is degrade the college, the good name of the college, and those of us, like myself, that have graduated from the college, the Joe Robachs, and the list goes on and on and on. We all graduated from that college, and it's a shame that this is what they felt was of value to bring forth, was a person like Anthony Bottom.
Well, we're about ready to head into a break, and I'm going to give you another, 2 words when we return. Well, you're back listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Dan Varenti, a long and storied career in law enforcement, was the police chief of the Brockport Police Department, a professor at Brockport teaching classes, recently retired, and we met each other when he was the president of the Monroe County Police Chiefs Association years ago. And actually, we met each other because I wanted to do First Responders Appreciation Day, and you coordinated that. And in a testimony to community policing, I remember back when when we were doing that. And Bob Johnson's doing the program now. We buy tickets for first responders and give them to. We don't have a display there and whatever. We just give tickets to people we appreciate. And I remember you saying, "Can I have some extra tickets?" And I go, "No, of course you can." He says, "Well, we have some kids that haven't been to a ball game, and if we take them, maybe their family can't afford, and it's a way of us reaching out to some kids who we can affect and we can have a relationship with." And I always admired that because that's sort of like it's sort of like an Andy Griffith sort of thing. You're part of the community and you connect with people. It's really good. Well,
it's all based upon what you were willing to give us, Tom, and you never said no to me, so right back to you.
It's hard to say no to somebody with a gun.
I don't disagree, but I think I was being very kind to you, and you were very kind to me. So
we were talking before about your teaching. Now you are at another college now, right?
I am. I'm. They say that God doesn't close one door without opening another, and I believe that's true. And I was honored that shortly after resigning from Brockport, and there was more notoriety about that than I think I deserved, which could bring up even another point, and you can ask me about it later on if you want me to come full circle. But nonetheless, after I resigned, there was quite a bit of notoriety as a result of that, and I received an offer to teach down in New York City. Mm-hmm. I had a phone call, and it was obviously going to involve either me driving and such back and forth, which would be a long way to commute, or me moving, and neither one was an option. So I thanked them graciously for that offer. That was very kind of them. But then shortly after that, I received an offer from Roberts Wesleyan College to teach in their criminal justice department. And in fact, an individual who used to work, I don't want to say for me because I don't believe in that philosophy. We worked together when I was in narcotics. And he was an investigator. I was the sergeant running the unit, Glenn Grana. He reached out to me, and he was now a full-fledged professor, soon to be a doctor, and obtained his PhD. Reached out to me and said, "Dan, we'd like you to come on board over at Roberts Wesleyan. You could teach whatever you want. We really admire what you did." And that was a really humbling experience for me. So I was able to reunite with a co-worker of mine. He's now my boss, so like they say, be careful who you say. Right. Be nice to people on your way up because you're going to see them on your way down. But they hired me, and I'll be teaching there in the fall, teaching criminal investigations, and I just couldn't be happier. I've been working on the curriculum, and I'm tickled pink about it.
Sometimes it's such a downside to radio because I wish people could see the look on your face right now, because at the first segment you looked one way, and now I mean you look happy and joyful, and you have something to look forward to. Geez,
Dom, there's every teacher has their own way of teaching, and yet I'm going to brag about myself a little bit. I like taking the work experiences that I've had, good or bad, and bringing them into the classroom and applying what we're talking about from the textbook to the actual everyday event. And it just to see the kids' faces. I say the kids, the young adults, the adults' faces, as I'm talking about my experiences and asking them as to how they tie them into the classroom and the textbook. It's just phenomenal to see the interaction, and that's how I teach. It's an interactive way of teaching. I bring in a number of different factors called neurolinguistics. I teach that in the class itself, and we have a great time. And I tell the students, if you don't want to have a good time in this class, go take another class, because that's what we're going to do.
Now, are all the kids interested in getting to law enforcement, or some? Oh, no.
No, that's the beauty of it. Is there's some that want to be teachers, some want to go into parole, probation, some into law, police officers. But it's a general elective course, and your reputation does get around the college as to how you teach. I'm happy to say I've never had to fail one student in 22 years. There's been a couple of C's, which really upset me. The students will see me become upset throughout the semester if they don't do well, because I want to see them do well, not only in class, but in life. And we teach the course as to how to be successful in life. So it's a great course, and we really enjoy it, and I enjoy it. And I'm very happy and humbled to be able to teach this over at Roberts Wesleyan.
Well, let's change gears a little bit because, the elephant in the room right now is this spate of violence that we're seeing across the country, and in particular in Rochester. It seems like every morning we wake up and there's another shooting or stabbing or whatever. I'll throw out 2 words to you: bail reform.
Well, you've got to take me from being heartbroken with Brockport to being excited about going to Roberts Wesleyan to now becoming angry when you talk about the situation in the city, because you're dealing with life and death. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, because of the type of country, the type of integrity that we lack, if you will, in our country today, which I call respect, bail reform, it plays right into that lack of respect. What New York State did in reforming bail reform is they took all respect for the judicial system away from them. There is no respect for our judges anymore. There's no respect for their position. There's no respect for the law. There's no respect for wrongdoing. And as a result of that, now you can't even, or you don't even, or have an individual arraigned before a judge because they're not allowed to set bail on people. And I'm talking about people that have committed burglaries, maybe robberies, assaults, possession of weapons. And, that to me is just what a disservice they have done to those people who have run for election and actually taken away the authority that they have that was granted to them by the electoral. The people voted these judges into office so that they could do their job, and then the state turns around and says, we're going to prevent you from doing the job because now we have bail reform. And if you really hit a spot with me with bail reform, because in addition to bail reform, we have parole reform. We have criminal justice reform. But what we don't have is public safety reform. Mm-hmm. We have nothing that stands up for the victim anymore and says, no, we need to reform some laws. We need to go back in time to protect the people of our state. We have more protections being afforded to those that commit the crimes than we do to our victims. And I'll really hit you with something, Dom, as a homeowner, as a family man. Can you imagine in New York State today, somebody breaking into your home and under bail reform, mm-hmm. That person is now allowed, and an arrest is made. That person now has a right to come back into your home prior to their trial beginning so that they can examine what is purported to be the scene of the crime that they supposedly committed. Imagine that now being a rape. You have to let a rapist back into your house so they can examine the bedroom where they committed that rape? You're looking at me like you're puzzled.
No, I'm looking at you like I'm frightened.
Well, yeah. But you should be puzzled because I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't wrap my mind around how the heck would you want to be able to bring a person into your home that committed a rape? It's crazy.
It is crazy. Well, we have to go away for just a little bit, and we'll be right back right after this. Well, welcome back. You're listening to No Nonsense Roundtable. I'm Dom Genova, your host every Saturday, and I'm here with Dan Varenti. Long career in law enforcement, teaching police chief, and used to be the president of the Monroe County Police Chiefs Association. And we were talking before the break about bail reform. But at the bottom of the hour, everybody who listens knows that I like to reach out and say thank you to the Bob Johnson Auto Group for sponsoring the No Nonsense Roundtable, a great place to buy a car, buy a truck, or get them fixed. And this year they're going to be sponsoring the First Responders Appreciation Day, which we started years ago. And I'm very proud to say that they are doing that. So if you're a first responder, we have tickets for you and your family to come to a game. I think it's July 31st. And just as a way of saying thank you for what you do. Now, Dan, we were talking about bail reform. So let's finish up the bail reform. And the culture on the street, I think, is one of the things you were talking about, that people don't have the respect for the officers that they used to, which has got to cause a lot of different problems.
Well, absolutely, Dom. I mean, you don't have the respect. Back when we were children or kids or growing up and a police officer said, come here, I'd like to talk to you for a minute. You went over there and you talked to him for a minute, because if you didn't, that officer brought you home, our parents took care of business. Today, they would turn around and raise a middle finger to a police officer, or turn around and shout some type of derogatory remark and keep walking. And now what you're doing is asking a police officer, now, does he risks his job and tries to stop this individual to determine what they're doing at a certain place at a certain time, and risk their job because they're going to be criticized for it, or if it escalates into something else, and the next thing you know, the person gets hurt, or God forbid, the officer uses deadly physical force because the person decides to pull a knife or a gun on the officer, and it's all going to turn around and say, well, you know what, you never really should have asked him why he was walking down the middle of the street at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, from these small little problems that we no longer address, we have these big, huge problems right now called murders.
Well, I had a conversation the other day with a sheriff in another state, and it was a rather lengthy conversation. He says, you know whose fault this is? You know whose fault this is? He says, the people that voted these politicians into power that came up with these crazy laws. That's his take on this. What's your take on that?
Well, to a certain degree, I don't disagree with him. A lot of times we like to defer blame as human beings, and we're always looking for who else can we blame for something. And frankly, I think, folks, it's time we start looking at ourselves in the mirror, and we start realizing that if we don't like the laws as they are today, if we don't like the fact that maybe there's more criminal rights than victim rights, if we don't like the fact that there's 7 shootings in the course of a 24 to 48 hour period of time in our city, and we have to start looking at ourselves and saying, well, how did these politicians get in the office that they're in? Because we voted for them. And if you vote for them under one pretext, maybe they sold you a bill of goods, maybe they lied to us, maybe they thought the problem was easier solved than not. But if they haven't done the job that we want them to do, if they haven't properly represented us, then we have to vote for somebody else. And frankly, before you ask, I'm gonna give a pitch for where we are today. And I think we are in a good position today because we have some tremendous candidates running right now for various positions. And I'll name one as two very good friends of mine, Jim Van Bretero, the former chief of police of Gates. I don't, at this point in time, have it in me to run for office, to go out and shake hands, and to do what this man is doing right now. Another one is Laron Singletary, former chief of police of the Rochester Police Department, and unfortunately had to work under Lovely Warren, who probably went down in the books as being the worst mayor the city of Rochester has ever had. Unfortunately, I had the opportunity to meet with her one time, and it was less than favorable, and I walked away shaking my head, and it was about parole reform, nonetheless. And how she wanted parole reform structured, and we know where she is today. And she I feel so sorry for someone like Malik Evans, who followed in her footsteps, because he's got a hell of a mess to clean up, and he's not going to be able to do it in a very short, methodical way. He's going to have to do it somewhat radically, because you can't waste time when people are dying. But back to the good choices we have. I mean, to have a Jim Van Bretero running for the New York State Senate, and to have Ron Singletary running for U.S. Congress, and to not put those people in office, if we don't take advantage of those two people running and vote those people in, then folks, we are the problem, and we have absolutely no right to then stand up and shake our heads and say why our things are the way they are. Those two men, in my opinion, have the highest amount of respect from me. And to watch them continue to work right now, because frankly, all they want to do is serve you and do the right thing. And if we don't take advantage of putting them in office, then I'll lose all faith, not just in the political system, but in people in general.
Well, the problem that we have is just it's like you have this brush fire of violence that's going on, and the way I look at it, I think an analogy. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's getting any better anytime soon. I mean, we could talk about these these issues that are generational to change in education and schooling or whatever. But right now, you need something done about the problem at hand, right?
Well, absolutely, Dom, and I'll go along your way. I mean, you don't bring a politician to a brush fire and expect them to put it out. You bring a firefighter. And you don't bring politicians into the criminal justice problem that we have right now in New York State. You bring police officers, and you bring professionals and police chiefs. And these guys have done what other people only surmise to do. They've done it throughout their career. And I'll take it even a step further. I mean, you're getting me all wound up here, but based on that whole Brockport incident, there was a number of rallies held out in Brockport. And I had the distinct pleasure of meeting Lee Zeldin's running mate, Allison Esposito, a deputy commander of the NYPD, who's his running mate. Once again, two individuals, Zeldin, who was a former military individual, a well-decorated man, still in the Army National Guard or Army Reserves to this day. I mean, guys like Lee Zeldin, Allison Esposito, Jim Van Brederode, Laurent Singletary, and there's others that are not law enforcement, but will defer to those in law enforcement that are running. That I just think that we are about to see some change. And again, we have some very, very great candidates that know how to put out these brush fires because they've been there, they've lived it, they've seen it. And now all they want to do is make things better for us. And if we don't take advantage of it, then once again, I think we'll have found the enemy, and the enemy will have been us.
And I think if business, teaching, whatever, the worst law is the law of unintended consequences. And some of these laws, you can make the case that people had good intentions but didn't understand what's going to happen at the checker on the second move. We're about ready to head into another break, and we'll be right back after these short messages. Well, welcome back. You're listening to the No Nonsense Roundtable. We're here with Dan Varenti, former police chief, former president of the Monroe County Police Chiefs Association, college professor teaching courses in criminal justice. That has to be awfully interesting. Now, the one you're doing now is investigative work, is that it?
It's criminal investigation. It's a criminal investigation course, Dan, and it's basically what I did the majority of my career in. So
sounds fascinating.
Oh, I just love it. I love it.
Oh, okay. When you're talking to somebody, can you tell when they're lying? Pretty much.
It's called neurolinguistics. I teach it to my class.
Really?
But then I warn the students because they've gone home and tried it, and they come back into class the next week and say, I think my boyfriend's cheating on me. And it's like, no, don't. You're not an expert yet.
Van Brederode was on the show one day, and I said, why, when you stop me, do you ask me if I know how fast I was going? Because either I got to admit to being stupid, lie to you, or tell you, I was 75. Yeah, I thought I was going 95. I mean, why do you ask that?
Well, if you don't know how fast you were going, then you can't defend the fact that you weren't speeding. And if you say you were doing 50 in a 45, you just admitted to speeding 5 miles over. Right. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Right. And if you said I thought I was going 120, you probably got put in handcuffs because you're being a wise ass. Right?
Well, unfortunately, in today's day and age, we're not allowed to pursue people that do that kind of speed, so we wouldn't stop you anyways.
Well, I'm just saying you said it just to be a wise guy.
I know.
Okay, so we were talking about the analogy of what's going on with violence all over, in particular in the city, as a brush fire. So what do we do to put out this brush fire? What is the short-term solution to this?
Well, Dom,
if there is one.
Yeah, I don't think we have brush fires today. I think we have 3-alarm fires when you've got the homicide rate as it is. And remember something too, the difference between a shooting and a murder or a homicide, a loss of life, is usually a quarter of an inch or a good doctor. So in my opinion, and I think the mayor has even alluded to this, that it's not a statistic you want to pay that close attention to as who lives and dies, but more so the violence that took place. Because whether he lives or dies shouldn't be the result of a statistic. It should be something you want to prevent. And I think the way I would do that is, as I've said prior to the commercial, we need to get some politicians in office that are willing to handle and take on these type of challenges. And if you don't like the results, then you need to make those types of changes. So God willing, people will do that. But I also think we as a society have to come to recognize that this is not acceptable. It's not good enough just to make a march. It's not good enough to have a rally. It's not good enough to hold a sign to say stop violence. We need to be willing to make some sacrifices and do some different things. And what I mean by different things is maybe go back in time a little bit. And it's what I call progressive policing, proactive policing. And we don't have proactive policing today. We have reactive policing. We react to what's occurred. We don't do anything to prevent it. And in my opinion, the way you prevent shootings is you get guns off the street. So the question is, well, how do we get those guns? Well, you get the guns by promoting stop and frisk, something that basically is being looked upon as a negative today. Oh, we don't like stop and frisk. Well, stop and frisk gets weapons. That was the reason why you stop and frisk somebody. You have to have other reasons. Obviously, they have to be acting suspicious. They have to create a potential danger to the officer. But those situations today do not promote an officer from checking to see if a weapon occurs. So now you have allowed a person to continue that type of behavior because we don't want stop and frisk. I'm a big proponent when I was a police chief that by taking care of small things, you prevent large things from happening. So you stop the speeder that goes 35 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. You see if the car is registered or unregistered. You see if the car is inspected or uninspected. And if it's not, you tow the car. When you tow the car, you put the person in your police car to give them a ride to where they need to go. You pat them down for weapons. You search the car as part of an automobile search that's allowed to be conducted. You search the car for valuables or weapons prior to it being towed. You find guns that way. So you do things in a proactive manner that may be distasteful to some of the pastors that are out there today, specifically Lewis Stewart, who I don't see at murder scenes. I don't see him when someone's life is taken. I only see him when he wants to criticize what a police officer may have done. So I question where Lewis Stewart really is and what his motivation is, but that's for another time. But you do things as police officers today to prevent the fires from occurring, and we're not doing that anymore.
I have a question for you, and I have a suspicion you might have an opinion about it. Police Accountability Board.
There again, I mean, how much money is being spent to hold police officers accountable? You know what, Dom? Where was the dealership accountability board when you were a car dealer? Where is the surgeon accountability board? Where are the cameras when a surgeon is performing open heart surgery to make sure he doesn't make a mistake? And I'm not going to say that two wrongs make a right. I'm not opposed to cameras. What I am opposed to is sometimes taking a split-second decision that these officers have to make and then procrastinating over that decision in a grand jury over the course of weeks or months. Wait a minute, stop that. Play that again. Let me see what he saw and had to react to in a split second. You know, if the job was so easy, then why don't the people that are saying that officers are doing such a bad job, why don't they do the job? Why don't they take the test? Why don't they become as physically fit as these officers need to be and be in the right shape physically, mentally, educationally, and then try it on. Do the job. I guarantee you won't find it to be as easy as you think it is. But I think until we in our city of Rochester realize that we're in a 3-alarm fire right now, and we don't have the luxury of trying to determine what social ills may have caused the problems we have, I think we need to recognize that they're done by guns, knives, and weapons. That's how people die. So you take those off the street, and you do it by holding people accountable for their actions, for small actions. If you take care of the small problems, take care of the small brush fires, you're not going to have the 3-alarm fires. You take care of those people that are speeding, that are congregating, that are loitering, that are selling drugs on the street corner. You start backing your police officers by electing the right people to be in office, I think you'll see some major changes occur. Until that occurs, and unless that occurs, I'm afraid we're going to go from bad to worse.
And I don't think anybody in your business does it for the money. I mean, you're doing it for the honor to leave the place a little bit better than the way that you found it.
Well, Dom, I can only say that when I became a police officer in 1979, I didn't even know they paid for health care. I didn't know what the salary was. I just wanted to be a police officer. I wanted to serve the public, but I also wanted to go after and frankly arrest those that harmed the public. And I'm not going to apologize for it. I wanted to hold people accountable for wrongdoings, and I don't think that's being promoted today.
Well, we're about ready to end the show, so last words?
Well, I can't thank you for allowing me to have a voice here. I'm just going to once again encourage people to say if you don't like what you see, do something about it, and that'll happen in November. Don't be shy. Get up. Have a voice. Pull the lever that you think is going to affect change, because absent change, we're just going to have the same types of things occurring, and that's unacceptable.
Well, Dan, delightful to have you on again. Thank you ever so much, and it's good to know you, buddy.
It's been my pleasure and my honor to know you, Don.
Well, thank you very much. Next week, same time, same place, 10 to 11, News Radio Wham 1180, or all the time on NoNonsenseRoundtable.com. We'll see you next week. Well, thanks for watching this YouTube. If you liked it, please like and share.